Good morning, traders. Today is Tuesday, October 19th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. All right, sorry I'm running a bit late this morning, so we'll get right into it. We got another gap up, another one. So once again, as with every other gap, we'll be watching for a gap and go. We'll be looking to see the overnight inventory is net long, so there should be somewhat of a counter auction to the downside, meaning a small pullback this morning. After the market opens. So we'll be looking to see how much of a counter auction we get. Are we able to trade all the way down to yesterday's high at 44.7975? Okay, if we are able to trade down to that level, we look for support there. If so, that is also a gap and go. So basically the market pushing down and reversing anywhere in here is considered a gap and go, and that is an extremely bullish scenario for continuation higher. Okay. Spike rules were in play this morning because of the spike from the M period yesterday, and we are opening above the spike, so that is the most bullish scenario. So that is another bullish indicator there. I will just say 3 gaps in a row is starting to create a lot of excess for the market. So we may need to balance here. As I said yesterday, we might need to balance, and we did not. We might need to balance here today. And there are 2 ways for the market to balance off excess. Okay, the market has a big push higher. It either pulls back down with price, or it gets a big push higher and it just rotates at higher prices. Okay, so we might just rotate at higher prices today, or we might need to pull back down to backfill some of the gaps below us. So what I'll be watching this morning, like I said, the very first thing is the attempt to fill the gap. If we pull down into yesterday's range, we get below the base of the spike, pretty much below this like 45-degree angle here. I would be looking to short for Oh, wow. My computer was very loud this morning. Short for continuation lower. Okay. But any support that we find above the base of the spike from yesterday at 44.7825, any support above there is a bullish scenario for the gap and go. So I'll be looking to go long for continuation higher. We may potentially find support. I'm going to leave this high marked up here. We may potentially find some support at that 48.8350 level, but I highly doubt it. That was still on the chart just as potential resistance on the way back up. So I think the stronger support would be yesterday's high or the base of the spike at 44.79 and 44.78. So let's see what happens. Mediterra hit yesterday's final target, but were you in a trade? Do you hold your trades overnight? That is the question. Good morning, RK Leon. Good to see you. Mangala, good morning. Mediterra, 88.89 area seems key. 88.89. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're seeing there. Okay, so on the first push down, the first counter auction with an attempt to fill the gap, they found support, and now they've pushed their way back above the opening price. So that's bullish. Let's see if they can hold this. Ronald, good morning. Jay Trader, good morning to you. Diane is seeing some targets at 45.20 and 45.82. I mean, ultimately, again, it depends what kind of trader you are. Ultimately, those all-time highs are really the target. That's where the market's going. But in terms of intraday today, obviously not. Alexander, good morning to you. Philip, good to see you. Welcome. David is here. Good morning. 2 Manifs, good morning to you. Ocean Blue. I was up. I was just busy working on other stuff. Vincent, good morning to you. JG, good to see you. Jose is here. Nicholas, welcome. Amir is back. Phoenix in the house. Design Knob, good morning. Sea Dogs. David, good morning to you. Henry, welcome. Good morning. Rob, good to see you. Doug, good morning and welcome. All right. Starting to feel like this isn't going to hold. We got a little more gap to fill here. Design Knob. She's taking on water, Captain. I mean, she's got a gap. Got to get that gap filled. Get that water to stop leaking. Swing targets from October's low. Oh, there you go. BTC is pumping. 63 this morning. I forgot to check on that ETF. Yeah, it's trading. Oh boy. Opened at 40, sitting at 42. Bitcoin. right, again, it's bullish. Finding support. So essentially, for those of you that are new to the channel and aren't familiar with the term gap and go and what I'm talking about, it's a momentum thing. It's like the market will open with this big gap, so it's way above the price of yesterday. And then the first thing it tries to do is trade down and fill that gap. But if it can't do it, if it can't get there, it just like doesn't need to come back down. You know, it just turns around and goes the other direction and basically trends higher as long as it can until it runs out of buyers. But obviously in this market, there's a lot of buyers. We've had this massive trend higher. So, you know, a gap and go is a very reliable signal when you have this strong of momentum to the upside. Does that mean we never need to come back and fill the gap? Of course not. Of course not. It just means right now for the morning, they didn't feel like they need to do it. So they have to push the market until they run out of buyers. And then they can come back down and give it another try later. And just like that, I'm bullish. Miles smashed the like button this morning. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Those likes really help out the channel, particularly if they come in first thing. Just throwing it out there. It's easy to push a little gray thumbs up. Marco, I want to ask about the setting of the TPO chart. Is your regular trading hours one just 9:30 to 4 p.m.? Yes, it is. Exactly the open to the close. I don't use any of the pre-market or the runoff. That's, by the way, not anything that I think is that big of a deal either. Okay, so now once again, we should find support in this node that we built up the support this morning, right here at about 44.90. So if that fails, we are attempting that gap fill once again. The key thing to look for will be what happens to the ticks when they get to that zero line. Okay, so we're getting to that zero line. We're starting to push through. Oh, yeah. Back to neutral. Gap fill in play. Cheeky buggers today. Market's being tricky. David V., do you think that the next hurdle is the overnight high? And is it bearish if it can't be taken out? I don't know that the overnight high specifically has any resistance in it, but there's probably previous support resistance there. Let me zoom out on the chart. Oh, yeah. 4504, basically 4500. That is the bottom of the balancing area, the very last balancing area that we had at the high. Geez, we've really pushed the last few days. We have had quite a push. Yeah, so that right there is the very last balancing area that we have. So, of course, there's definitely some resistance in there. Jesus, these are old orders from yesterday. Yeah, so definitely some resistance at that overnight high. But, man, just look at this. Look at how quickly. Normally, you don't go up that fast. You go down that fast. This is pretty crazy. So I feel like this does need to back off a little bit and bring in some stronger support to make it back to those overnight highs. But this market is famous for its momentum, so it can keep going. But yeah, geez, looking at that, we've made quite a move in just 5 days, or 4 days and 30 minutes. Douglas, maybe you'd get more likes if you had background music or sang to us. Well, I asked about the background music yesterday, and it was a overwhelming no. People do not want that. And I'm happy to sing for you, but sometimes that gets me some down thumbs. So it's a dangerous idea. Tom, good morning to you. Marco, could I have your window trader template? Marco, are you in the brigade? If you are, you can just go to the Discord. It's in there in the software section. ZNQ is slightly more bullish. They both kind of seem like they're just rotating right now. Yeah, that looks about the same. Yeah, Marco, I'll just show you real quick. If you go to software, you'll see somebody asked me for an updated one recently. There it is right there. The one that says Charles Dark, that's the newest one. And then my old one, which is basically exactly the same, just with the blue background, is all the way at the very top. J Trader, early chop, digesting the big overnight move up. Yeah, I guess so. I'm not going to lie, I really did not think we were going to have another gap up this morning. This market is on fire. The missed swing trade. I was looking for a swing trade on the the retest of that downtrend, and that was the most ridiculous concept ever. Now, I thought once we broke through here, we'd come back down and back test this first before we did this, but no, sir. They just want to go straight to the moon. Stocks only go up, baby. Scooble. What do I feel about the NQ? Well, it's in the same position as the ES, right? It's still got a gap below, but it will be more bullish if it gets above the overnight high, pushes above there, comes back down, finds some support, and then looks for continuation higher. But as long as it's inside the overnight range like this, it's likely to just keep chopping with the ES. But they're both very bullish. I mean, that's the thing. Like I said, the thing about a gap and go, the thing about creating a gap and then not coming back and filling it within like the first half an hour, hour of the day is, it's a very common thing that the market continues higher. It's just a sign that there aren't sellers in the market. There's nobody willing to give up their shares. They want more, or they want to hold it to sell for higher prices. So the market has to move higher to bring in enough sellers to cause the market to get back down and fill that gap. So right now it's tricky to say the market's going to go up right this minute, but I do feel bullish. However, everything changes. If we fill the gap, if we trade back down to yesterday's high, and then the market continues lower, right? That's where it starts to get dangerous, that we might need a larger pullback. But as long as we stay above yesterday's high, I'm pretty bullish. Diane. Fair enough. Was yesterday's profile a bell-shaped curve or a P shape? It's a great question. It's a little bit confusing because it does look like a giant P shape, right? Doesn't it? But because we left behind the single prints here, because these never backfilled throughout the day, we consider that two distributions. Okay. So the first distribution was a trend higher. The second distribution was a gorgeous bell-shaped curve. Boom, boom. So the market had a big push, started a new auction, and that auction just went rotational. And what does that mean for today? It doesn't really mean anything. It just means that the market's very bullish, right? They were able to push to these higher prices, and then they found acceptance up here in these higher prices. They didn't need to go back down. So that's like bullish, right? That they found acceptance. So then the overnight comes in. They do a bunch of trading in here as well, right? And then they break out above yesterday's high and they push higher. So it's just confirming the acceptance of higher prices. So it's bullish, but it's tricky to say. It's like I have a hard time sometimes with questions like that because it's like, are you talking about in the short term right now at this moment or over a longer term for the next few days or weeks? Everything is very bullish. The market, when it gets into these like very exuberant, emotional buying trends. I mean, it's been doing this for a long time. It's like it will shock you how far they can push the market. These FOMO buyers will just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, but then it eventually comes back, you know? So if you guys recall, in the previous run up to price, okay, we did, I mean, look at this here, right? What does this look like to you looking back? Looks like this here. Looks like this here. Okay? So, whoops. I hate when it does that. So yeah, it looks like that there, that there, that there, right? So when the market gets into these crazy bullish, they can push it. But then what ends up happening, right? Look at all the excess they left behind in this one. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing for days and days and days, but then what happened? They had to come back and repair that excess. Then they created a bunch of more excess in this one. And they kept pushing and pushing and pushing, but then what had to happen? We had to pull back and repair that excess. We ended up pulling back all the way down here, which took out all the remaining excess we left behind this time. So it's kind of tricky when you're talking about time frames. When you get this crazy momentum to the upside, they can keep pushing it for a long time and shock you every day. But it's weak and it needs repair eventually. So it's worth just putting that in the back of your mind. Don't let it distract you as a day trader, right? You want it to be long in all this excess, but you just want to be aware that at some point it has to come back and repair that. So as a short-term day trader, the only thing that matters to me is this high from yesterday. Can we stay above this high? As long as we can, that momentum is still in control of the market. Now, if we trade down to the high and we start to pull back below it, back into yesterday's range, well, then maybe not. Maybe the market's getting a little weaker. We're running out of buyers. We need a pullback. But as long as the signals, like a gap, keep showing me that we are pushing higher, finding acceptance, and then pushing higher again, got to go with the trend. Got to go with the momentum. Two minutes. How long have I been using Market Profile? About a year and a half. Jeez, maybe it's a little longer than that now. Basically since the beginning of COVID. Claude, bull trap? I don't know that it's like a bull trap in the traditional sense. But they may have gotten themselves a little overextended and need to pull back to fill that gap. Aaron, and that worries me. Stocks only go up. Yeah, man. Okay, internals starting to look good. Back above the zero line on the ticks, and they remain above it in the advancers versus decliners and the breadth. So if the market starts to one time frame higher here, if the B period gets above the A period, I will be bullish once again for the gap and go. So just to step back for a second and reiterate the scenarios for today, since I was running late this morning and didn't have time to really calmly think them through and explain them. So we have all this excess. okay, that we've left behind from the last few days, not just last night, but, over the past few days, we've been creating excess. There's two ways for the market to balance off excess. Pushes higher, rotates at higher prices, or pushes higher and then pulls back down to find support. So we've got this gap down here and now this gap up here, which are both excess. So the first thing I'm watching this morning is, what do we do with the first gap? Do we fill that? Do we pull back down to yesterday's high? And then if we find support, I'll assume one of two things is happening. Either the market has pushed higher and is just going to rotate, or it is still in a trend higher and it will continue higher. So either way, finding support at yesterday's high is bullish short term for a move higher, right? But if that fails, if that first gap fails and the market continues to sell lower, well, then I have to assume maybe we're doing the second option, where the market needs to pull back in price to find support, in which case it might need to trade all the way back down to fill that gap, finding support and then looking higher. And to the upside, when we start getting up here around those 4,500 numbers, right, I'll be thinking about that resistance that I just pointed out earlier from the previous balancing area low, okay? And I'll start imagining that scenario where it pushes higher and then it just rotates up and down. So if we start to get resistance up in here and we can't get any higher and the ticks start to fall below the zero line, I'll be thinking about rotation, wanting to go short at the highs. But if the ticks continue to trend higher, if it's bullish, if we push through that resistance, I'll be thinking we're continuing all the way up. Ding, ding. All right, got a little poor high here in the B period. Cotton Dog, who's asking about yesterday. So if the single prints had filled, it would be a P distribution, suggesting short covering. Is that the single prints didn't fill attribute to new buyers keeping price above the single print? Yeah, I mean, that's anytime you see single prints in the middle of the range like that, it's essentially like, you could think about it like a change in the market. Like something's happened here. So if the market pulls back down and backfills it, well, no big deal. Nothing to worry about, nothing to think about. But if you leave those single prints behind, if they're still there when the market closes at the end of the day, well, then they're very important. They're a sign of a change in the market. And the change was we pushed up into this higher price and then we got acceptance, meaning we didn't need to pull back. There's not really much information beyond that. The P-shape, B-shape thing, I think people get too caught up on. They make too big a deal of it. This market doesn't really care if it's pushing higher because of short covering or new money buying, as long as the momentum is still there. It's really more focused on momentum. At least it has been for the last couple of years. Okay, volume's pretty thin in here. So I'd like to see them bring in some more volume. They're also smacking the ticks down. So I think we are definitely working our way up into some resistance around that 4,500 number. David V, could you clarify why you see excess in those boxes you draw? Yeah, I mean, it's too late. Sorry, I didn't see your comment when I was drawing them. But excess is either single prints or gaps. Rob Farley, looks like those 3 pushes were all 5 days. Really? I didn't even notice that. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. But then, like this one, you really can't even count. We had one little pullback day and then pew, right back up again. So that's kind of like one big move. Good catch, though. And where do you find the market profile program and how much does it cost? It's at Window Trader. Window spelled without a W at the end, windowtrader.com. It costs like $150 a month for the software. I use the light version, the cheaper of the two. There's like a light version that's $150 and a full version that's like $300. And then the software, I have like the most expensive software, so it's like $200 a month. But there are cheaper versions that are like $150. The Bears this morning just couldn't get it done. Yeah, man. I think it's really just a lack of selling from the inventory that's already being held, right? It's not a matter of like filling a gap is not a matter of new sellers piling on to fill the gap. It's a matter of the people who are already holding long contracts getting out of them, taking profits. Um, so I really think more so than like bears, people who are negative, who think the market should go down, I think it's less that and just more nobody wants to sell their shares. Everybody thinks this price is going to keep going up. Mangala, the market does not make sense most of the time. Um, well, it kind of depends how you look at it, but yes, the market is random. To make that statement would be the same as to make the statement humans don't make sense most of the time. Well, they make sense, but they do random crazy shit. Ocean Blue, can you show what a gap is in terms of profile? Well, visually in this software, it's these green arrows you see, but it's just from the previous day's high to the current low. So looking back at the lower ones, like yesterday, we partially filled this gap. This was the gap. See the green arrow here? That was the gap. We partially filled it yesterday. So now what's left from yesterday's low to that previous high is the gap. Yeah, they are not winning me over here. This feels like resistance. Trading Donkey, do I think of the overnight high as weak on days like this, meaning like it needs repair? No, not really. Nothing jumping out to me about that. Mangala, I would just say this is what I would say to you. He says sometimes is happening, but there is collusion between big players in the market, in my opinion. What you have to think about is all of those players, all of those participants, they are part of the market, right? So it doesn't really matter what they're doing or how they're doing it. They are the market. We are the market. The market is a collection of all of its participants. That's all it is. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just, you just have to kind of accept that, like, whatever, quote unquote games they're playing or whatever, like that's part of trading the market. You know what I mean? Philip, wondering if you could post your marked up chart at the end of the day. Helps to see what you see and can study them. What do you mean by marked up chart? Because pretty much at the end of the day, all I have is whatever references are left behind. I delete references as soon as they're no longer relevant. And so, like, if we look at yesterday, like, I got these references left behind. I got the base of the single print. So you talking about those type of things? Alexander, you should change your banner to feeling bullish. I'm not, though. I'm not bullish. Maybe you're right. Yeah, look at that tick. Before I was looking at this tick, I was like, no way. But yeah, they pushed up. They're bringing in volume. You're right. They might be looking to push higher. River Rock, short. He wants us to know he's all caps, short. 45.50. 4,550. You know what I was thinking about doing the other night was I was thinking about making a new segment, like a daily video that I do at the end of each day called Market Generated News, where I just kind of talk through very quickly what happened that day in the market and how I read it. Basically rephrase all the stuff I've been talking about all day long. Is that something anybody be interested in seeing? Like a 2-minute video at the end of the day saying the market went here, it found support. This means this, that means that. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Yeah, it's trading right now, Malcolm. It's trading at this very moment. Ocean Blue, you had me at bring in subscribers. Yeah, I just don't want to like give myself more work to do every day, but yeah, it's an idea. Oh, Ocean Blue, the stupid faces are what bring in the subscribers. That's what you got to do. Mangala, Charles, have you heard of Peter Resnicek of Shadow Trader? Have I heard of him? Half the stuff I know I learned from him. Good morning, Arthur. Rob Farley, I have trouble seeing support. Do you mean in general or right now in this market? Because the support will be the nodes of volume from earlier, right around that opening price. This area should have some support in there. It's feeling like rotation. I know I said it yesterday that we needed a rotation day. And we ended up getting that massive push higher and then rotating. But starting to feel like rotation here, guys. Those ticks are having a hard time staying above the zero line. Well, the first thing I would say, Rob, when it comes to support resistance is don't try to make it an exact level. I drove myself nuts trying to figure out like an exact, it's going to be this one, candle. Like it's much easier to just think of it in general ranges. So pretty much just look for like the fattest candlesticks where the most volume and just think about it like if the market trades down to there, it'll find support somewhere in there. And then you'll notice you'll see them much easier because sometimes it might trade down right to the very like highest tick of volume, boop, boop, and then it finds support there. Sometimes it comes down and it kind of grinds around in it for a little bit and then pushes up. So that's one trick I found when I was trying to get really specific levels. It'd come down and maybe miss it by a little bit. And then my entry would have been like right there. And then I miss my trade. So it's safer for me to think about it as general areas and then just feel out how it's trading when it gets down into there. J Trader. Have you heard of Jim Dalton? Oh, man, Gala, I'm sorry to hear that, brother. I hope it goes well. Trading Donkey coming in with a friendly reminder that the market often pushes one direction for the first hour of the day and then reverses and goes the other. Not uncommon at all for this market. Salmon River. One of the best lines from the Liverpool book was the guy who said he made his money by never catching the bottom or selling the top. It's true. Trying to get those exact trades can be tricky. Yeah, let's check on those likes. How are we doing? 67 likes for 121 people. We can beat that. Man, I want to go bullish so bad, but the internals, they won't give it to me. They're like, no, Charles. They're buying the futures, but they're not buying the underlying stocks. So it's probably FOMO day traders doing business up here. So real quick before we leave for the day, I'll just go back and show you guys once again what we're kind of dealing with right here. This is the last balancing area that the market had. And so oftentimes previous balancing areas act as support and resistance. So you can see like we pulled down lower. We created this balancing area here. And then when the market pushed back up, look where it found resistance. Boom, right in there. Same thing to the downside here. We built this balancing area here. Market pulled back down, found support in there, traded back up. So it can, that kind of could be what we're just dealing with. We're trying to break back into this balancing area. Man, looking at the monthly here, it's just like, what if? And I'm not making a prediction here. I'm just making a totally random thought. What if this is this? Just a small little correction to set us up for another push. Shit's crazy. All right, printing the C period, we're creating a poor high. We often get a push away from a poor high. We also have the single prints left behind from the B period here. So the highest probability is that the C period will trade down to the base of those single prints, looking for support there. Also a little bit lower volume in that node, so it makes sense to backfill it a little bit. If the market can find support there, and the ticks can start to trend higher, which they're not, then you could get bullish. But until then, this feels like it's setting up for rotation. Too late, donkey. Can't undo what I did. All right, guys. Well, with that, I will bid you all farewell. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not a member of the Brigade, the way it works is at the end of the day each day, I switch from, or at the end of the first hour each day, I switch from this public stream to a private stream. And it only costs $10 a month to watch those streams. So you're welcome to join. There's a link in the description. Otherwise, I will see you all here tomorrow morning. Have a great rest of your day.